So these are all examples of knight's moves. So in this case, you're gonna always know the answer, but we can always go through and explain why. So here we have a connection, right? So what move will connect these stones? Well, we know that A is a knight's move, so in this lecture, it's definitely going to be correct. But we can see that if white tries to push forward, then black blocks, and now there's no way to just connect these two stones, right? So this would be really nice for black. If white was to say play this way, we push forward, white tries to cut us, and then we play here. So now we see white once again can't connect or disconnect us, and so we're in a good standing here. But if we were to play this way, now it can lead to something really bad. So remember this knight's Tetsuji, this knight's connection. This is really nice. I remember I first saw this in the Tetsuji book by James Davies. So it's a really nice technique to find. What you can do, what we can see here is if white is to try and cut us, well, now we'll cut him. But white has enough strength and enough aji to continue to move out. And so this gives white enough space to live. And so now the black's corner just completely dies. This would be a horrible result for black, an amazing one for white. So we can see once white cuts here, these stones are just in too much danger along with these stones. Black doesn't have enough ability to stop white from living here. So I thought that was a good example of using the knight's move defensively. Okay, and so here we have another result. Now, once again, we know the knight's move is the best connection. So once we play here, you can clearly see that black can't disconnect white. It's going to get killed or, something or other. And so white has this really nice shape and lives pretty easily. But if we follow the proverb, the one where it says if we have 3 stones, we can jump, because of this weakness, it's not going to work out well. And so let's take a look at how this doesn't work, right? So instead of using the knight's move, we're using the 1 jump. When black pushes through, white will block. Black has many options, well, 2, but both of them work really well. So if black plays here and white was to protect this stone from getting killed, well, now we can Atari, 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 and now it's 2 liberties versus the 3. We have to come up with the wrap-up Tetsuji or the roll impact, they call it in Chinese. But this is a really, really nice sacrifice Tetsuji. It's very hard, I think, to find at first, but once you see it, it's like actually pretty obvious. But I really like this combination of using these multiple weak points to crush white here. If white was to just take this side, then black gets a ladder, and this ladder is good for black. And so black is making solid thickness on the fertile land side, right? This is a lot of potential territory. And then if black just outright plays this, it's the same thing without a sacrifice. If you value this side more, you can just play this one directly. And of course, if white messes up, then you just get the same result as last time. So really cool. And it contradicts one of the proverbs, which I think is a good idea. The proverbs are there to help you, to give you an idea, a general initiative, or intuition, a general intuition on where you should play. But you always have to read out the other moves around you, right? The other stone formations around you. You can't just blindly follow proverbs. You need to make sure to do your reading. In this case, the proverb doesn't work, and so we need to come up with the knight's defense. Okay, so here we are again. It's actually here. So white obviously wants to keep its territory here. And so Once again, if we use the knight's move, this makes it so that we can keep our territory, right? This looks very common, and so that's why it's a good example. Let's first look at the right move. So the most that black can do now is play A here, and then white will play B, and white has successfully kept its territory. If you were thinking like black should cut, I mean, it's just very clear that white gets a good result here. Um, and so this is really nice protection for white using this knight's move. But if we were greedy, I guess you could say, and wanted to keep this stone and like take as much territory as possible, if we play here now, there's two huge weaknesses. One, there's the shape weakness, and two, there's this big gap. And so when black plays the shape weakness, it's already threatening white here. So if white protects this cutting point and doesn't want to lose its stones, then black can already make a two-space base and still has room to jump out. So this is very good for black. And if white loses all this, it's terrible for white. If white saw this and decided to protect what it had, well, now black can just hit the head of the two stones, once again creating bad shape for white. And black is fully connected to its top group. So this is very bad for white as well. So the idea is once again we can use the knight's move for a good defense. This is it. And like I said when from the beginning, when we use our knight's moves, we have to expect that we can have some sacrifices, right? This would be a sacrifice. All right, I'm going to move on to the next variation. So this one is not in my tool set or not in my vocabulary here. I found this one to be, I was actually surprised, you know, how this works. But anyway, so I'm not used to doing like this, what I've named Pyramid Head for anybody who's like a Silent Hill fan. Um, it makes this nice pyramid head shape. Um, but let's just talk about the dog face versus the pyramid. So, if we were to play the normal shape, to me, this looks very normal. I can see this shape all the time. This one looks abnormal to me, but anyway, we'll play the normal one, the dog face shape. If white, or sorry, black now pokes here, and white has to connect, we can see white kind of looks a little looks a little doofy, right? It looks like it's heavy stones. It doesn't have a lot of eye potential. Technically, it's three stones with something on the vital point, but it just looks a little goofy or heavy to me. It's just very, it doesn't have a lot of eye potential. And so now if we play something like this, we can see that if black tries to cut through us, this is actually well protected with a ladder. And if not a ladder, if the ladder doesn't work, then you can actually use the net as well. Because black can't stop you from having two liberties, which is enough to kill these stones. So both the ladder and the network here. So it's really well done. So this like triangle or pyramid head actually is a very good protection. It's very light. It's very like out there. It's more faster. This one is a bit more heavier shape. When do you use this? I'm not sure yet. I haven't used this, I don't think ever. So it was new shape for me. So I thought it was really cool. Although I have used it in the defense, right? We had the problem down here where we used the three knights or the two knights moves to connect. So I've used it a lot on the connection for the third and second line, but I've never used it out in the open. That's what I wanted to stress. So I thought this was a really cool problem. So in this example, we have two major cutting points. If we were to play the Hante move, so white plays here, and then it is now white's turn, I guess. Um, if we play the Hante move, when black cuts here now, it's kind of devastating. White has to kind of make shape for its stones here, and then black gets to come out. And so now these stones are under a lot of pressure, right? They're either potentially going to get killed or they're going to have to run away, which allows black to get out. And so A and B continue to stay cut. And so it's a big problem. So playing the Hante move or the real move doesn't work in this case. Instead, if we use a double knights move, well, actually it's only one knights move, but it looks almost, it is a double knights move. It's the pyramid head again. Um, if black tries to cut here now, we can Atari, keep the pressure on. Now we can, and this was a very similar problem the last week. We had something like this, but now we can threaten to connect, which also is the eye stealing Tetsuji. It makes this a false eye. And now we can clamp. And so now we can see that black got sealed in and white has connected fully on the outside. So it's a beautiful squeeze, or in Chinese, they call it the roll and pack. It's very nice. And it continues to show that when we use knights moves, we have to expect a sacrifice. So we have to keep that in mind. But it is really, really beautiful. I'd feel like a genius if I got this off in my game. um, but yeah, well, this pyramid head comes up again, which is pretty cool. All right. I think we're getting to the last of the Knights moves examples. So once again, we're using Knights moves as defense. You guys already know the answer, but let's talk about why C is better than everything else. We can start with A. This is a very solid connection. Solid connections are very good usually. And although it's very strong, it's not very dynamic. It's missing eye shape. That's what it is. And it feels like it's only one purpose, right? Just staying connected. If we were to use a diagonal or a tiger's mouth shape, it's very clear where white can poke. And then now we have an empty triangle. And so this shape looks very inefficient. Um, Finally, we have the Knight's move. And so now in the book, it doesn't even cover it, but I think you guys can clearly see it becomes a ladder if white cuts. So the Knight's move is an ideal shape. It protects the cut and it's projecting more influence and potential eye space. So here's something that's doing like three purposes, and here's something that's doing one purpose. If we can do two to three purposes every move we make, we're probably going to win the game because uh, that's what we want to strive for as Go players, right? We want to try and do more than one thing. So if you guys need to see it, it's very clear that this just dies, right? And so this cut is protected.